Many would suggest that Tekken 3 is one of the greatest fighting games in the series and possibly ever made. And growing up, there were differences between the versions released in different regions. I never understood why, but the version I grew up with in the PAL region was slow and clunky. But that wouldn't be the case for other regions. But still, people were ready to fight over this claim, so I had to see for myself. Now with the recent re-release of the game being added to the PlayStation 5, I now get it. It turns out that we never really played the real Tekken 3 in all its glory. We just didn't know any better. But this version allows you to finally see the game everyone was talking about. So let me show you how this version could change your mind of the game. When we look at the original impact of the Tekken series, on a grand scale, it was revolutionary. A series that originally started off in the arcades, but would eventually be later ported to consoles, giving us almost a near-perfect arcade action within our own living rooms. From the iconic characters, to the environments and even the story and lore behind it, it's truly exceptional that has stood the test of time even to the current day, which is why you even see the likes of even Tekken 8 and other modern games still be seen as successful in many respects. And while we did have Tekken 1 and Tekken 2, which were groundbreaking for their time, I think it wasn't until 1998, when the third in the series would be released, that it would really take off. Because when we look at it, 1998 was really a special year for gamers, and just with consoles in general. You had so many up and coming franchises, newly built franchises, and series that had already a cult status still continue on and evolve over time. You had so many great games over that year that just released on so many different platforms that have maintained their cult status even to the current day. And when the third entry in the Tekken series released, it would be among one of those titles. Like, there's no denying the sheer impact this game has alone. Even when you look at it today, it still looks and feels and even plays great. And for me personally, it's my favourite in the series, and I still think it's the best. While I was never great or really skilled at the game, it still didn't stop me from wanting to play it and to experience everything on offer. But here's the big question, what a lot of people really don't know about, and often don't realise, about the original release of Tekken 3. The game did release in different regions, yes, but it didn't always play the same for everybody else. Because in other regions, likes of us over here in Europe, even with me here in Ireland, we didn't get to witness the game in its full capacity, with the full gameplay style, frame rates and speed that had been accustomed to in the likes of America and Japan. And because we were so used to playing games in that particular way, we really didn't even notice the difference. To give you a better idea of what I mean, all we have to do is look back at the release of the PlayStation Classic mini console back a few years ago, which came bundled with 20 games, and Tekken 3 was among them. But the version that we got on the console was that of the European version, which ran at a lower frame rate that was more akin to what we were used to over here in Europe, when in fact we actually should have gotten the full version that ran at the full 60 frames per second, that was closer to the arcade original. And to be fair, because of the way hardware is and even emulation, there is no excuse. And as we all remember, the internet went crazy. People and hardcore players just went absolute mental because they couldn't understand how slow it was. But at the time, and even today, they still didn't realise that this was the version that we got over here. But still, it's no excuse. They should have given us the best version possible of the game. But when we look back, it was the only version we had. It didn't feel any different to us because that was the way we were used to playing it. It is what it is. There's a lot of people out there that'll still hate on it for what it is, and each to their own. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But thankfully, now that the game is released on the PlayStation 5 as of late, we have all of the best features that are available that's more akin to the original release of the game and even closer to the arcade. That allows you to play even in its original intended format, but also allows you to upscale the visuals, but the frame rate still stays consistent throughout all regions. So you also have access to your save states and rewind features, which for casual gamers like myself, it'll be a must, because like I said, I'm not that great at the game, I never was. But it does allow me to rework my mishaps, because let's just put it this way, I got my head handed to me quite a few times in matches, even on the easier difficulties. So being able to go back over those mistakes to try and counteract them is definitely a must. But for those that are more akin and more hardcore and that know the game inside out, won't have that worry at all. But what makes this version on the PS5 even better is that you no longer have to wait around the slower loading times, as it does feel a lot more instant. So you can literally jump into any type of match or mode at your own discretion almost instantly without having to wait too long. And what's cool about this entire entry is that it still holds up relatively well. If anything, it exceeds all expectations, while yes, it's still not perfect. As even when you look at the emulation that we see in today's market, I don't think it'll ever be perfect, but that's what also brings the unique charm about it. The fact fact is that it's playable and that the frame rates are consistent and that it's more akin to what people are actually looking for. It's as good as we're going to get. If anything, it's the closest that we can ever possibly get to its original state from way back in 1998. Some will love it, some will hate it, each to their own. But for me, I've been having a blast playing it, even though technically I'm still not that great, and it has taken me a while to get familiar with the different movesets of all of the characters. Which, when you see the familiar faces with the likes of Paul Phoenix, Nina Williams, Yoshimitsu, and even with other newcomers for their time with Jin, Hwoarang and Eddy Gordo, there was so much diversity in the character lineup with so many different movesets and combos at your disposal that, if anything, when you look back, even for me as a gamer, I played originally Tekken 1 and Tekken 2 and I really struggled to get into those games back in the day because I was so used to playing titles like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter where you could just button bash all hell and still have a chance of winning, whereas Tekken required a lot more strategy and just self-awareness of what you were doing. But when Tekken 3 came around, it did change that somewhat. It made it a lot more appealing to casual gamers or even just players that wanted to get involved in the series that didn't have to worry about struggling with different movesets and so forth, because literally all you had to do is pick Eddy Gordo or Hwoarang and you could literally just juggle combos to your heart's content and just beat the crap out of everybody to a point that very few could even get a hit in against you. And those elements still stand in this version of the game today. That's what makes it so cool. The way I see it, you have two kind of dynamics. You have people that love playing the game on the original hardware, which is totally fine. It does require a lot more of a setup, but if that's something you're willing to do and you have the means and the wants and needs to do it, then absolutely hammer it away and walk away. But then on the other side, you have the more modern aspect, which in many ways is probably a little bit more appealing, especially to the modern gamer and even just people that are restricted with time. If you want something that's quick and simple and easy to pick up and play, that's not going to take too long to get into, this could be the perfect game for you. The fact is that yes, the game is well over 25 years old. You might be thinking, that it's not aged all that well. Well, the visuals on screen speak for themselves. For a game that released in 1998, it still holds up ridiculously well. I think it's still one of the best looking games ever on the PlayStation, and even by today's standards, it doesn't look out of place, especially when you look at the more mainstream elements of the way video games have gone. And even with the indie scene, you see a lot of low poly style games starting to appear on marketplaces. Tekken 3 just fits right in. Yes, it's old, but it feels modern at the same time. And this new edition that allows you to play at the full frame rate that the game was intended to play just adds to that appeal. It really doesn't feel out of place at all. So if you've managed to get to this point in the video, I really appreciate it, and I just want to mention that I've also set up a Patreon page if you're interested in supporting the channel, where I plan on creating additional content that I don't post here on YouTube, but that I'll also give access to likes of monthly live streams for the community to get more involved in, so that we can dive deeper into preserving these old classic games. So if that's something you're interested in, you'll find a link to it below. It has all of the elements that are there, the great character, setup, rosters, unlockables. Even with the Tekken Force mode is a nice touch. If you're a fan of beat 'em ups like I am with the likes of Streets of Rage and all that, you'll have a blast with this. Yes, it is still a bit on the clunky side, but with the more additions with the modern controls, being able to use the analog joysticks and so forth, you can have little walkarounds and figure out different dynamics. Plus, with this edition, the fact is that you can rewind your save states. It does make it a bit more appealing because there's times where you are going to mess up and lose all of your health. At least by doing this you can reframe it a couple of steps back so that you can tackle it all over again without having to restart the entire thing and go through it again, which you would have had to do back in the day. This cuts that time down in half significantly. But then even with the other additional modes, with the survival mode and even other unlockables, like there's so much diversity here in this game. Like technically for its time, even when you look at it today, it is the perfect arcade port in many ways, almost like a masterpiece. I think for even what I said earlier, it's as close to that as we're ever going to get. I don't think we'll ever get a perfect arcade port. I don't even think that it's really possible, as much as people say. Yes, there are debates around it, but it is what it is. At the end of the day, we all see things differently. People will see the game that they're playing in front of them totally different from the person beside, and that's totally fine. But if you're a fan of the likes of the more modern Tekken games, if you're even currently playing Tekken 8, there's no harm in going back and trying this. I think it's a really good addition to add to your games catalogue or whatever. And to be fair, Tekken 3 is just as good, especially now with this edition, because it's so accessible and easy to pick up and play. There is no excuse and no reason to not relive that experience all over again, or just to give it a go for the first time if you haven't played it. I would highly recommend it. It is an awesome game. It's an awesome classic. It has stood the test of time, and what's to say in another 30 years, if we're all still around, that it still won't be played by many. I'd say that it will. The fact is that you have access to all of the features, and the consistency throughout the gameplay just makes it all the more appealing and more approachable. And with all the characters that are available, there's somebody there to suit your playstyle perfectly. But for the fanatics among us, you'll want to literally unlock everything that's available in the game just to experience the lore behind it. It's just a very, very cool game. That's all I'm going to say. This edition really does capture that nostalgia, but while also bringing it into the modern age, that will appeal to new players alike. And I genuinely do think that new gamers to this will enjoy it equally as much. It has to be seen to be believed, and this game does cover that basis better than most. But it's great to see a lot of these modern games being released on these systems today, because not all of us will have access to the older hardware. So let's just hope that other editions that do release on these modern systems are as well catered for as this. Because if Tekken 3 can look as good on this, even with Tekken 2 that did release in it a while ago, you'd like to even imagine that some of the PS2 editions of the Tekken series could work equally as well, especially the way emulation is with the likes of Tekken Tag Tournament and even Tekken 4, which were also epic games. It'd be interesting to see if that happens, but this is a good format to work off of, that's for sure. But more to the point, it will be interesting to hear what your thoughts are of this version of Tekken 3 that is released now on the PlayStation 5 and modern platforms. Do you still prefer the original, or are you finally glad to be able to play the game the way it was intended to be played back in the day? Because I know for us over here, even myself, we never really got to witness that, and we just had to make do with what we had. But it didn't bother us entirely really. But now that you see it for what it is and what was capable of it, you realise now that yeah, it is better than you would have expected, and this is the way that the game should have been played. But sometimes certain means go beyond our control and we don't have any say in it, but at least now we can, so it is what you make of it at the end of the day. But really, it will be interesting to hear your thoughts, so be sure to share them down in the comments below. And if you would like to see more videos of other PS1 games that have recently released on the likes of the PS5, it might be worth checking out this next video. And as always, keep those gaming memories alive.